Don't bother, I'm not singing. I'm talking. Well, my father's fears were useless, because from the very first, I had one big protection. I was homely. I had nice hair and black eyes, but a yellow complexion always. Yes, I was homely, and I knew it. That is why vanity never bothered me. I knew from the beginning how homely I was. But homely or not, nothing mattered then. For at last, I had my contract for the Dresden Royal Opera, signed by the king, through Tante Nina Kenzel, who continued her interest in my progress. The Princess of Teck took an interest in me. The princess in turn gave me a letter of recommendation to Caroline, Queen of Saxony, so that I had a wonderful protector in the Queen when I went to Dresden. Of course, I wasn't used to society in those days. The child of an army officer hasn't the right to go out at her pleasure and make acquaintances by herself, as in this country. When I left home, I knew nothing of life. Such was my early training. So when I sang in Dresden, nobody dared to say anything to me because they knew the Queen of Saxony had an eye on me. They were really touched that I was so alone. Of course, they laughed at me and my country ways behind my back. But I didn't understand them then, so it didn't matter. I lived there very plainly with the widow of the organist at the cathedral. I had only a little bit of a room on the 4th floor and a corner with a little bed and washstand. But I had a real piano at last. It was all very plain, and I paid 60 marks a month. This paid my rent, and I got my coffee for this too, and dinner. But the supper I bought myself. I bought for 7 pfennigs a kind of sausage, a piece of bread for 5 pfennigs, and a little glass of Kulmbacher beer. It is a malt beer, very good, and it made me strong. My whole supper cost not more than about 5 cents in American money. Every month I sent money to my family, leaving only 75 marks, 25 marks extra when I needed shoes and other things. The 3,600 marks I did not get all at once. This I got at the end of the year, and then I had a vacation of 4 weeks. I could go home. I went home the first year feeling rich like a millionaire. The opera house at Dresden was a wonderful place, clean and fine, and I sang for the first time Azucena in Trovatore. I had a tremendous success, but I got the part only once because they thought the voice was still too young. I sang only the small roles in the beginning. I had my church position also, but that was very hard for me because I still didn't know how to read music very well. Now, I must tell you that when I came to Dresden, I had had very little actual school education. Mother could not spare me from home, and the children, as you know. Why? When I first came to Dresden, I could not spell right, even in German. But after my contract at the opera, I started by myself to read. Then too my eyes were opened a bit by seeing and being with all those opera artists. I began to realize things I had never dreamed. I then started myself to be different. I began to take more interest in my appearance. I combed my hair better, a little bit looser, not so tightly plastered back, and I started to look a little better. My figure was good, thank goodness. I was slender, never wore a corset or anything like that. And so I made the most of my hair and figure, so that people wouldn't think too much about my homely face, which the director in Vienna had so bitterly objected to. Well, at the end of the first year, I had a vacation of 4 weeks, and I went home to Graz. And then it was that I got my first, what you call in America, proposal. Yes, 2 men actually wanted to marry me. Think of it. Both doctors from the regiment. One had known me as a child. The other was my father's doctor. Naturally, I was much interested in these proposals, but my career meant far more to me. When I came home, Mother, of course, was so happy over my success. And Father was happy too, though he wouldn't admit it. But he still kept a strict house even then, when I was an opera singer. No going out at night and always early to bed. They treated me still like a child, but it was good. It kept me strong and healthy. And my poor old teacher, Marietta von Leclerc, she was tickled to death and so proud of me. It was touching. That was the first year. The second year I came back. I knew a little more about music. I had seen all the theaters and operas, could talk to people about these things, and had a few words to say for myself. The Princess of Teck was still interested and wonderfully kind. I remember when we talked about my singing in the operas, I complained and said, "It is all very well and good, these little parts, but they don't let me sing enough parts. I want to sing the great roles, Amneris, Ortrud, and so on." "No, no," she interrupted. "They are right. You are too young. The voice is still far too young. If you sing these big parts now, you will be done for. The voice gone in a few years." How truly she spoke. But I didn't realize it then. And so I sang on in Dresden. My life was one of routine and study and singing of small parts in the opera. Although this was the beginning of my second season, I still sang only small parts in the opera. But I sang in concerts at this time. Life moved along in this fashion for 3 years without any great change. And then came the first great break. And, of course, it was a man. Yes, it was then that there came into my life Heink, whom I married, without the permission of the intendant at the opera, and which brought about my great tragedy. I lost my position in the opera. It is written in all the contracts that no young singer may marry without the permission of the intendant. By marrying, I broke this rule, and so it was that I must suffer in consequence, and a heavy penalty I paid, as you will see.